Overview. Generator is a web server production application that can dynamically combine text, graphics, and sound to build rich media content and deliver the final product in a variety of animated or static formats. Designers use the generator authoring extensions, generator objects, to create templates that contain variable elements, graphics, text, and sound to be replaced with content provided by a data source, text files, databases, and so on. This generated content can be played back in the client's browser as Flash Player movies or as JPEG, PNG, GIF, animated GIF, or QuickTime files. You can also deliver the content as a standalone application called a projector. Generator frees designers from the tedium of updating Flash movies each time they make a small change to the content. The authoring extensions used alone create static SWF, GIF, JPEG, PNG, or MOV files that can be added to web pages and uploaded to a web server. When the online and offline server components of Generator are installed, the Generator authoring extensions can be used to create graphical front-ends for sophisticated server-side applications, such as interactive weather maps or site navigation. The Flash 5 English CD installer provides the option of installing the Generator authoring extensions without the online and offline server components. The Flash 5 English CD also includes a trial version of the Generator Developer Edition for the Windows version of Microsoft Internet Information Server and Personal Web Server that can be installed after completing the Flash 5 installation process. Using Generator contains the information necessary to create Generator content using Flash 5 and instructions on installing and configuring a full version of Generator. It contains information that does not apply to users who are only using the authoring extensions installed with Flash 5. In particular, the installation and configuration information in this chapter, information about the online and offline server component in Chapter 5, and information about the administration servlet and generator properties file in Chapter 6 are only for users running a complete installation of Generator. The following flowcharts demonstrate the process of using Generator. Using the Generator Objects palette and the Generator panel, use the Generator Objects palette to place Generator objects on the stage and in symbols. In Flash, Generator objects appear as gray squares on the stage. The object type appears in the left corner for identification. Use the Generator panel to set properties for the selected Generator object. The properties determine how the object appears in the generated output. You can also use the Generator panel to apply a Generator command to a symbol instance. For details about object panel properties, see Chapter 2, Creating Generator Objects, and Chapter 3, Dynamically Modifying Instances. To show or hide the Generator Objects palette, choose Window Generator Objects. In Windows, you can also hide the palette by right-clicking the palette and choosing Hide. Note, if this command is disabled, Generator has not been installed successfully. To place a Generator object on the stage or in a symbol, 1. Display the Generator Objects palette. 2. Drag the object from the Generator Objects palette to the stage, or double-click the object in the palette. The Generator panel will appear when you create a Generator object. To display the Generator panel, do one of the following. Double-click a Generator object on the stage. Right-click a Generator object or instance on the stage and choose Generator panel. Choose Window Panels Generator and select the Generator object or instance. To show or hide descriptions in the palette or panel, Windows only, right-click the Object Palette or Generator panel and choose Description. Hiding descriptions in the Generator Objects palette displays icons only. Hiding descriptions in the panel removes the property descriptions that appear at the bottom of the panel. When specifying a symbol from the library for use with a Generator object or command, refer to the symbol by the name assigned to it in the library. If the symbol is contained within a folder in the library, refer to it by folder name/symbol name. For example, if a symbol named red_wall is not contained within a folder in the library, refer to it as simply red_wall. If a symbol named red_wall is within a folder named red_objects, refer to the symbol as red_objects/red_wall. If a symbol named red_wall is stored within the wall subfolder inside the red_objects folder, refer to the symbol starting with its parent folder and on through to its name, red_objects/wall/red_wall. See Processing Templates with Generator Overview for information about specifying symbols in external media. Note, you may need to resize the generator panel in order to view all of the parameters in the list or to view the help strings at the bottom of the panel. Basics: creating and using variables. Creating and using variables. Variables are placeholders for values that you can assign later when the generator template is processed. You supply the values for the variables in data sources that you create. Variables can hold positions where you later insert any string literal. This includes not just visible text but also text that has some function, such as with actions like go to label, or text that specifies the name of symbol to insert, or even text that provides a value of true or false to the replace command's replace symbol property, effectively enabling or disabling the command. You can define variables in the following places: as text blocks on the stage, as parameters to generator objects, as parameters and arguments to flash actions as a frame label for use with actions in the main timeline and in child timelines as an instance name in the name field of the instance panel when using generator variables with Flash 5 ActionScript. Be aware that ActionScript treats generator variables as strings. Generator variables must be enclosed in double quotes. Generator variable. For actions and functions that accept string values for arguments, double quotes are supplied by Flash if the expression checkbox is not selected. If the expression checkbox is selected, you need to enter the double quotes around the generator variable. For actions and functions that do not accept strings as arguments, you may be able to use one of the ActionScript functions to convert the string value inserted by generator to the required type. Defining variables. To define a variable, use the following syntax. Generator variablenum. The curly braces are required. They indicate a variable definition. Specify the name of the variable between the curly braces. The name can consist of any alphanumeric characters. Variable names are not case sensitive. As good development practice, try to give variables meaningful names that are unique within the template. This avoids confusion over ambiguous variable names. For example, name defines a variable called name, address creates a variable named address, and greeting defines a variable called greeting. You can concatenate variables. For example, you can specify the following to display the full name: first name, last name. See also using data sources. You can define the value for a variable using the parameters fields in the Generator tab of the Publish Settings dialog box, using command line parameters for offline processing as URL parameters for online processing, or by placing them in an external data source. See Processing Templates with Generator Overview. If you specify a variable but do not define its value in a data source, it is usually left blank when generator processes the template. If you've specified an undefined variable for an action, its declaration remains unchanged. Using variables to dynamically replace text. You can use variables to dynamically replace text. If the parameter field requires specific values or accepts a limited range of values, be careful to supply a valid value for the variable in your data source. To create variable text for dynamic replacement, use the text tool to create a text box in the movie. Type the variable name, enclosing it within braces, such as variablenum. The variable name cannot contain spaces or any other non-alphanumeric characters. Using variables as parameters to generator objects and commands. You can specify variables for any generator object or command where you can enter text. Simply type the variable in the parameter field. Using variables as parameters for Flash actions, you can dynamically modify an action by specifying variables as parameters for any action field where you can enter text. To use variables for action parameters, 1. Select the button or movie clip on the stage or keyframe in the timeline. Select Window Actions. 2. Double-click an action in the toolbox list. 3. Specify a variable in one of the action parameter fields using the variablenum syntax. Be sure to enclose the variable in double quotes if you are specifying an expression for the parameter value. Note, some actions cannot be previewed with Flash. You need to preview them in a browser. The following example shows how an action specified with a variable expression is replaced when the generator processes it. The data source, data.txt, contains the following name, value, server var, test, label, label 1. Before the action is processed by generator, it looks like this on release. Clean var equals server var if clean var equals test. Trace, server var, trace, label, label, tone step, label. After the action is processed by generator using the data.txt data source, it looks like this on release. Clean var equals test if test equals test. Trace, server var, test, trace, label, label 1, tone step, label 1. When the button is pressed, the playhead goes to label 1 and stops. Making generator objects targets of actions. You can make a generator object the target of actions by using the instance name parameter and specifying an action that references it. The following example shows how to make a generator object the target of actions. You create a button that stops a movie when it is selected. To use the insert symbol command's instance name parameter for actions, 1. Double-click insert symbol in the generator objects palette. 2. In the generator panel, specify any symbol in the library for the symbol parameter. 3. Type hello for the instance name parameter. 4. Create a button with the following actions on release. Hello stop. Notice how the new Flash 5 action script syntax allows you to apply Flash actions that are methods of the movie clip class directly to the target without using the tell target action. 5. Preview the movie with generator enabled in the Publish Settings dialog box. In the preview movie, if you click the button you created, the stop action is applied to the target. Hello. The following example shows how to use a movie clip symbol that is contained in a generator object as the target of actions. To use a movie clip inside of a generator object for actions, 1. Double-click plot in the generator objects palette. 2. In the generator panel, specify obj for the instance name parameter. 3. In the data source of the plot command, use the column names clip, x, y, and instantium. For the clip column, specify a movie clip symbol name. Specify any x and y values you want. For the instantium column, specify target 1. You can give any name to make this symbol a target of actions. 4. Create a button with the following actions. Attach a stop method to the instance inside of the generator object. Make sure you use a period to specify the path hierarchy. Using the stop method in the movie clip class, the button actions should look like the following on release. Obj target 1 stop. 5. Preview the movie with generator enabled in the Publish Settings dialog box. In the preview movie, if you click the button you created, the action is applied to the target, target 1. Using buttons and templates. You can place buttons on the stage in a generator template. Actions assigned to the button can include generator variables. You cannot, however, place generator objects inside any button state, nor can you use any template command, such as replace or insert symbol, to directly place a button in the generated movie. If you want to nest a generator object inside a button, first place the object inside a movie clip, and then place an instance of that movie clip inside the button, by dragging it from the library to the symbol editing window. If you want to use a generator object to place a button on the stage in a generated movie, you must create a new movie clip and place an instance of the button inside it by dragging the button from the library into the symbol editing window. You can then use the generator object to place the movie clip in the generated movie. The button functions as designed. You can place radio buttons in generator templates using the radio button object. See using the radio button object for more information. Guidelines for working with buttons and actions. Remember the following guidelines. When working with button and actions, don't use generator objects or commands to place buttons from the library into the movie. When buttons are needed within a template, drag them from the library to the stage or symbol editing window. Don't assign data sources to button timelines by using the generator environment variable button. See providing data sources to generator. Don't put generator objects directly within button states. They are not parsed and will not yield expected results. Instead, place instances of movie clips or graphic symbols that contain generator objects or commands in the individual states of the button. These symbols are processed in an additional step and will work as expected. When declaring a variable for a target frame, use the goto action with a frame label instead of a scene name or frame number. Scene names are not preserved when the Flash movie file FLA is exported to a generator template SWT, so they cannot be used to specify a target frame at runtime. Frame numbers can be used, but user should be aware that Flash does not preserve scene timelines when exporting SWT or SWF file formats. During the export process, Flash appends all of the scenes in sequential order to the end of the first scene in the main timeline. If Scene 1 has 15 frames and Scene 2 has 5 frames, on export Flash creates a single 20-frame timeline, and the first frame in Scene 2 becomes frame number 16. If you target this frame using its original frame number, 2, the action will not work. Providing data sources to generator. You can provide a data source to a generator in either of these ways, assigning a data source to the timeline of the main movie or a movie clip using the generator environment variable button, assigning data sources to specific generator commands and objects that require them, providing environment variables. In the timeline, you can use the generator environment variable command to assign a data source to the timeline of the main movie or a movie clip. Enter the file name for the data source in the dialog box that opens when you click the generator environment variable icon to the upper right of the timeline. If you specify more than one data source, use a semicolon to separate the data source names. Note, the generator environment variable command can assign data sources only to the timelines of the main movie or a movie clip. This command has no effect for timelines of buttons or graphic symbols, even though the dialog box opens if you click the generator environment variable button in these timelines. You can also type the actual data source data in the edit box if you want to store the data directly within the template. This approach is useful when you want to provide a few static values that are used repeatedly for the template but aren't updated frequently, which saves the time and effort of managing a separate text file data source that would serve the same purpose. If you do type the data source directly into the data source window, you must begin the declaration with a # number. For example, number name, value, x 100, y 200, z 300. However, if you use the column name/value format and provide multiple sets of values for an environment command, the generator environment variable button in the timeline, then it's important to note that only one set of values can be valid for the timeline. The last set appearing in the data source will be used. That is, each row of data overwrites the values for the variables from the previous row in the data source until no more rows are found. Note, scenes are an extension of the main timeline and are intended to help developers organize their content more efficiently in Flash. Scenes are not preserved as distinct timelines in the final exported SWF or SWT files. Instead, all scenes are assembled sequentially in the main timeline. Scenes are an extension of the main timeline and, therefore, cannot have definitions of variables used elsewhere in the main timeline. Any variable that is not unique across scenes will be redefined using the last declaration found, which will apply to that variable for all scenes in the movie. To use the generator environment variable command, click the generator environment variable button on the timeline of the main movie or a movie clip. 2. Choose column name/value or name/value to specify how the data source is formatted. 3. If you are specifying a data source file name, type it in the box or browse directories with a browse button. Remember to use relative paths in relation to the template file when you specify the data source. When the template and the data source files are placed on the web server, absolute paths would probably differ from those paths that were valid on your local machine. If you use the Browse button in the Set Environment Variable dialog box when specifying a data source, an absolute path is entered. You may need to change the path to a relative path. 4. Click OK. Assigning data sources to generator objects and commands. The following generator objects and commands require their own data sources: basic chart, list, elliptic list, pie chart, plot, radio button, scrolling list, stock chart, ticker, table, replicate. You should provide data sources for these objects and commands in column name/value format. Refer to the data source summary table in the appendix for a complete list of the required and optional columns for each generator object.